So hello to the two people in the room currently so far. If you don't know who I am, my name is Joseph. I am the creator of Love Undone. We'll give it a few minutes before we officially get started. But if you are here, put your name in the chat and maybe where you're from if you are not affiliated with the show. And even if you are in some capacity, write what you do for the show if you are a part of the show. So your name and where you're from, um, and yeah, let's start with that. We'll give it another minute. Hey, Sonia. All right, let's get this show on the road. All right, so let's get started. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Joseph. I am the creator of Love Undone. And if you're here, you're either a fan of Love Undone. Um, Here's how the next hour will work. Just going to walk through sort of where we are in the process of creating our final season, share some exciting updates with you as we go along. Hopefully, I'll be able to share not too much, but just enough of what we have coming for our final season. And again, put your name in the chat and where you're from if you are not a part of the show. So if you are not cast or crew, put your name and where you're from. You could do that anyways, but if you're not part of Love and None, we really like to know who's in the room. Okay, so I thought we would start with just first a thank you. So we launched our crowdfunding campaign back in March. I can't believe we're already in June. And we are about to hit the 3 month mark. For those who don't know, we are currently raising funds for our third and final season. If you also did not know that as well, this will be our final season of Love Undone. So we are raising funds as we do every season, so we're able to produce a great season for you. It takes a lot of hard work, and we work extremely hard to bring you the chaos that you love. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone who has contributed to our crowdfunding campaign so far, and who has shared it. So sharing is just as important as a contribution is to me. So hitting that share button, letting folks know about the show. Just want to start off by saying thank you for doing that, because it helps more than you know. So continue to help us spread the word, and continue to let folks know about the show. And if you have to give, you can contribute. There are links in our descriptions in all of our past 10 YouTube videos since we launched the crowdfunding campaign in March, and we'll continue to post them there. But we are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that I will include in our descriptions, that you can follow any of those and find the links there as well if you would like to contribute, or again share in an email to people you know. Or I always say, people who love a web series. Web series are still out here and people still love them. So be sure to support that way if you can as well. I already touched a little bit on the 3 month mark, but we are continuing and launching something new. Actually, in the last week, we're on our road to 10K. And what that means is 10K is our phase one goal to be able to complete our third and final season. So we have 2 phases that we're doing currently. We're in phase one, and with every phase, we'll reveal some more things throughout our final season, as we always do. So once we hit 1K, we shared our Dustin sneak peek. Once we hit 2K, we shared our Tori sneak peek. And then we hit 3K, we shared our Juanita sneak peek. And then once we hit 4K, we'll share our Elijah sneak peek as well. But we have some other ones as well. We have Deborah coming up. We have Sandra. We know you want to go know what's going on with Lori. We have Lori coming up. But then we also have some exciting things as well, where we'll be sharing episode titles. We'll be sharing the first page of season 3, which I'm a little nervous about, but excited as well for you guys to see that as well. It's always nerve-wracking to share the first page of a season. Actually, no, I don't think we're sharing the first page of season. It's something in the premiere. But it's just as exciting. I think we did change that. But and then we'll also be sharing episode 204. So if you've watched the show, you know what happens in that episode. It's the big confrontation with Dustin, Sandra, and Jeremiah. Elijah is stealing Daniel's job, and he finds out on the spot. Juanita and Barbara have just lost their best friend. It's a chaotic episode. It was a chaotic season, but we are releasing the episode 204 script once we hit a certain threshold as well. So I'll actually go through them for those who don't have social media. So once we hit 4K, we'll share our Elijah sneak peek. Once we hit 5K, we'll share our Lori sneak peek. Once we hit 6K, we'll share our Deborah sneak peek. Deborah has a lot more to do this season. So for those of you who are Deborah fans or want to know more about her, I'm very excited with where we're headed with her this season. And I think she's really going to be a standout. Definitely one of my favorites. Once we hit 7K, we'll share 2 season 3 episode titles. And then once we hit 8K, we'll share our Sandra sneak peek. And then once we hit 9K, we'll share full access to the script of episode 204. So if you want to read the script, you can. A lot of what's in that script did not make it. Certain lines, I would say, and a lot of stuff was improvised. So I always think it's cool to see what actually made the episode and what was actually written, so you could see that side by side. So that's a cool thing that we'll do as well. And then once we get to 10K, like I said, we'll share that a page from season 3. It's a really exciting one. And then phase 2, once we get to phase 2, I did mention on our first creator chat that we are also going to invite the 5 people that get us to our phase 2 goal will be invited to our table read after the table read, to be able to interact with the cast and ask the cast some questions as well. So that's going to be an exciting thing. And then we'll also bring back our producer credits as well. So if you want to be listed as a producer in the show at a certain threshold, we'll bring that back to in our phase 2 goal. But we got to get to phase 1 first. So if you can help us spread the word, we're always posting every day. So if you're like, oh, I never see you on the timeline, we post every day. So just go to our page every day. And if there's something on there, retweet it or share it with someone that you know. It's always appreciated. Or any of our videos or episodes on YouTube, we're always posting content as well. So thank you so much for those who have supported so far. So now let's talk the final season. And again, please throw your questions in the chat and I'll make sure that I get to them. I'll start off with like briefly and then we can go in depth as the questions come in if you have any specific ones for any specific characters or storylines. So with this season, I would say that we started sort of the way we always do is we list out sort of our series regulars. So Daniel, Tori, Juanita, all the people that you see on a regular basis throughout the season, we sort of build their arcs out first. What do we want to see happen with them in this season? Because it's a final season, it takes a little more sort of I don't want to use the word care because we care every time we think about a character, but like where are we taking these people through to the end, right? How do they finish? Is where they started different from where they are now? How have they grown? So it was really important for us to think about that in that context of all the major characters, and then adding some new faces, which is always exciting. And there are quite a few. We have 8 new characters this season. Sprinkled throughout the season, a couple of new series regulars who pop up throughout to cause some chaos, which I'm very excited about. So we start there and then we build out the episodes, right? So after we've crafted sort of a rough draft of the season, this is where we want to go. Bam, we do episode 1. We do episode 2, we do episode 3, we do episode 4, we do episode 5, and so on and so forth until we get to the finale, which is always like, you're always thinking, I don't want to mess this up, but I think the writers, we really, at the end of it, were like, this is real life and life is not perfect with the bow. So like some things are going to be like, we can imagine they probably end up together. We can imagine they're successful and still together, or we can imagine, not everything is going to be wrapped up in a perfect bow. But I will say that everyone, in my opinion, gets a satisfying ending. I think ends up with what they need the most. I'll say that. And that's not necessarily always what you want, right? So there's a comment that says, love that tidbit about Deborah. Do you all have a favorite family to write for between the Hills, Jones, Bells, and Braxtons? Great question. So if there are any writers in the chat, feel free to write yours. But for me, this season specifically, because as you've watched with season 2, like the Hill family wasn't really a family after the chaos that happened in season 1. So we were really, other than that, confrontation between Daniel and Juanita, you didn't really, everyone was really spread out. Jeremiah was sort of in a corner with Sandra and then Tori. Daniel was doing his own thing. Juanita was doing her own thing. But I will say that I think this season, it comes back in a real way without giving away too much. They were exciting to write for. They always are. But for me, I would say this season and the topics that we're tackling as a family, I will say probably the Jones was probably one of the most healing for me to write, because it sort of mirrored a lot of my life, I would say, and what I was going throughout the writing process. But I enjoy writing for all of the families. Of course, the Bell family is not really a family anymore either. With Taylor in Alabama studying school, Tasha's still over in Thailand. I don't know what she's doing over there, but she's successful and thriving with her baby. Mia, as you know, passed away, and yeah. So although I feel like what we've at least tried to do with this show is like be realistic, and sometimes Although I do consider this show a romance and family drama, sometimes families look different and they grow differently. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but for this season, season three specifically, probably as a family unit, the Jones. But I do enjoy writing for all the families. Great question though. Shaquan said writing for the hills. I cannot see with this heart over this thing. Oh, was a cute moment. Yes. Oh, always is. And I feel like this season, um, yeah, it's special. There's a moment in episode 7 that I actually just read that yesterday. And I was just like, oh, I think this is gonna be really special when we film it. So looking forward to that. Um, so yeah, and if you have more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But once we sort of craft out the episodes, we then assign episodes to each other. And I mentioned this on the first creator call. I'll mention it here as well. But when we first started writing the season, I actually lost my uncle 2 weeks before we started our first initial writers' room moment. So I invited everyone back. Something we did differently this time, where we just decided we're going to meet and we're going to decide, like, hey, who do we want to come back for this final season? Um, what does that look like with only 8 episodes? How do we sort of finish that? And I came into that writing session not really inspired to create. I'll go back and say, even from the end of season 2, I was experiencing a little burnout, but losing my uncle was like the worst possible thing to happen, right before going back into a writer's room, where you're supposed to be happy and creative. But for me, it was, I was happy to be there and happy to create. But for me, when it came to writing, it just was not clicking. So, like, I would say the co-premiere, which I'm so blessed that I got to co-write with Ron. He sort of took on most of it and ran with it and did such a great job with it. And I got to sort of add something, but it wasn't until we got to episode 5 that I really, still then not really inspired, but like what we had was great and I was really excited about it. But it wasn't until we got to the end of the season, seeing everything together, that I was like, okay, um we always joked about this season being about this, and it actually ended up being about this, and it actually became sort of healing for me, and still continues to be healing, because every time I read the season, I revisit um something. So really excited about where we're headed with that. Was the writers room split on who should be the father of Tori's baby, or was it an easy choice to make? Looking forward to finding out who it is. Great question. Um, Again, if you're in here and you're a writer, please add it in there. But I remember Hane, who was one of our writers, put a poll on Zoom, and this was when we were doing season 2. So before we had even, I think, written the actual episode, we did a poll on who we wanted, and I can't remember who won. Um, I can't remember who won that poll, but I would say yes. Like, everyone had their, like, it absolutely cannot be him, or it has to be him because of this. Um, but I don't think I can go further than that without spoiling it. But I will say yes, like, everyone had sort of their reasons of why Rashad should be the father, or why Cameron should be the father, or if it wasn't Rashad or Cameron, if it was someone else. But I do remember we did a poll and it was hilarious. So we all had to vote on who we thought the father of the baby should be. Shaquan said, girl, it gave fuck them kids, but the poll was the moment it gave FBI with all the answers and reasons. Very much that. It was. It was. I have my personal pick, which I guess I can reveal after we say who it is. But who ends up being the father, I think is who I want to be the father. So yeah. Who do y'all want to be the father? Let us know in the chat. Who do you think should be Tori's baby father, and why? Why do you think, if you had to pick, like, do you think Rashad, because that's gonna mess everything up with Lori, or do you think it should be Cameron? Or who do you think it is, without, you know, uh without a personal preference. But yeah, that's and I will say we addressed that in the very first scene in the very first episode. So we pick up right where we left off. I would say a couple hours after with Cameron and Tori, and then Daniel and Elijah and Benjamin. Um, we pick up right where we left off, and we're gonna get some answers, and we're gonna confront some things. So it's a really exciting premiere. Um, so yeah, so then after we get all the episodes, and I'm comfortable with sharing that. So for the premiere, Ron and I, like I said, got to co-write that together. The second episode was written by Jaretta, and then the third episode was written by Hanae. The fourth episode was written by Shaquan, and it is again. I can't wait for y'all to see that one. It's a whole lot of going on with that episode, but I'm really excited about it. I wrote episode 5. Episode 6 was written by Ron. Episode 7, Ron and Jaretta wrote together, and then I closed this out with the finale. So we are doing 8 episodes again to close out our final season. Ron said, I was about to say it won't take long for the audience to find out who the dad is. Yeah, we're getting to it because we got other stuff to address. So you're gonna get your answer. We'll get the fallout of what that is and how that sort of affects everybody. Because I will say, that just doesn't touch one person, right? It touches, 5 main characters in our cast, right? It's everybody and how we're dealing with it, of who is and who isn't the father. So yeah, we're gonna get right to it. It's gonna be exciting. Yeah, so with season 3, as I mentioned, we are bringing on some new characters as well, but you will see some familiar faces. Not everybody from season 2 is coming back to season 3, because some people's story naturally ended. And with this season, we really wanted to focus on the families and sort of the romantic dynamics that we've created with season 2, sort of answering everything before we get to the end of the season. But I will say there are some people that come, some people that help our characters sort of figure out who they are, help them on their journeys sort of through to the end. Because I would say this season, our characters are really struggling with the day to day, right? Like, sort of what I am in, like, for example, I can use Daniel for example, right? With like, and if you've watched Unconditional Love through to Love Undone, like every time Daniel gets something good, here comes something, to take it away from him. So for Daniel, it was exciting to really explore, which we started in season 2 with him sort of doing the article, which I know ruffled a lot of feathers with a lot of people, and a lot of people thought that was a horrible thing for him to do. But I think it was him sort of trying to put himself first and his dreams first. And that's something I've always fought for Daniel. And I'm always excited because I do feel like every season it's like he's here and then there's something to knock him down. So I think this season he's really sort of pushing forward in chasing his dreams, no matter who's in his way. So excited for that as well. Sonya said grimy. He didn't have to be grimy. Yeah. I call it the balance. Was it the right thing to do? No, but I get it. And I will say, the article does come back up twice this season. And I don't think y'all will forgive him because, like, it was a grimy thing, but I think you'll get a little more understanding of his position in terms of, outside of what he's already said to Juanita, you'll get a little more, I would say, from his viewpoint on why he did it. But yeah, if you have, I'll say let's start with any questions. If you have any questions for let's start with the hills. Let's start with any questions about Juanita, Jeremiah, Daniel. Who else is the hill? Yeah, let's start with questions about Jeremiah, Daniel, or Juanita if you have it. And that trickles down to Gideon, Elijah. If you have any questions about them, that's a good place to start. Sonia said all he had to do was lay blame where it belonged. That's true. That's true. Um, No, well, I guess we could. I'll go into that a little bit too. We will sort of, well, we will not sort of, we will wrap up the Needle storyline with Juanita, because where we left off at the end of the season 2, she's about to get the chop, and a lot of things are sort of left unanswered with the kids at the school, with Dustin and Sandra. So I will say, in terms of sort of Juanita's arc this season, we will sort of get an answer, a definitive answer on where she ends up by the end of the season with that as well. But yeah, any questions about or any of the characters too? I will just say let's go with any of the characters. Where we are now, so we have not started pre-production. For those who just joined, we are sort of in the early process for so the season is written, the season is done, the season is ready to go. I feel like if I hold it a day longer, I'm going to start changing stuff. So the season is ready to go. All 8 episodes have been edited. They're in a good place. So where we are now is we are currently raising funds to film our final season. And if you can and would like to contribute, there are descriptions that to our GoFundMe that you can contribute or share with anybody that you know. But that's where we are now. So the scripts are done. The Rise Room ended 3 months ago, and the scripts are ready to go. Normally, what happens next is we'll go into pre-production with casting, which is always exciting. Then our table read. Then we schedule filming days. We always film 15 days for our season, spread out throughout weekends. And then once we film it, we edit it. And then once we edit it, we're able to bring it to you every Sunday at 6 p.m. So I know a lot of folks have asked sort of when the final season is coming, because I know actually in September it's going to be 2 years since I've seen most of the cast. For those that live in Boston, or I see Shaquan, and I see a few other members of the cast, but like most of the cast I have not seen. It's going to be 2 years in September. So it's been 2 years since we filmed season 2. And then in next March, it'll be 2 years since the show was season 2 was brought to you. And I'm aware of that, trying to push it forward. So if you could help us spread the word, we'll be able to bring the season to you as soon as possible. So Sonia said, are we going to see a confrontation between Elijah and Benjamin? Yes. In the very first episode, I actually got to write that scene. I just want to say, on the topic of, well, I read that wrong. Are we going to see a confrontation between Elijah and Benjamin? Yes. I already said yes. So yes. I don't know why my mind was on Daniel. Yes, you will. It's not in the first episode. The confrontation in the first episode is between Daniel and Elijah. But yeah, you will see the 3 of them interact. They sort of have to, right? With where we left off, you sort of have to sort of address that with Elijah walking in on Daniel and Benjamin. And the audience knows that, Daniel wasn't about to do anything, but Elijah doesn't. So yes, there will be a confrontation. How that sort of trickles and the fallout of that will be throughout many episodes. But in the first episode, yes, you'll see a confrontation between Daniel and Elijah as that moment naturally, I think, would have Elijah upset. Shaquan said that's always the case. Whew! When I say Daniel stresses me out, but I don't know. He's my Daniel is like one of my favorite characters to write for, but it's this is chaos all the time. all the time. Every relationship. I don't think one has been, you know, it has been smooth sailing, but um yeah, I'm excited because what I was going to say before I realized that was Benjamin is that Daniel and Elijah for me, I was very protective of them. Like halfway through writing season 3, I'm like, hold up, I'm not buying this at this moment right now. We need to sort of add this um and add this to make this make sense because I don't believe that this outcome will be realistic to the audience. So for me, uh, I had read that at first and thought it said Daniel and Elijah, but yeah. Shkwa said, "You, haha, a boy be drained." Listen, I always think about our first weekend on season 2. So we do not shoot in order. We shoot all of our episodes um basically like when the actors, so if we have Shaquan who plays Daniel and Tyree who plays Elijah for the weekend, we'll shoot a bulk of their scenes together in that certain location. So if we're at Lynn Studios, we're shooting all of their Lynn Studios stuff together. So the second day of filming season 2, we shot every single I feel Daniel and Elijah argument in that one day, starting with Daniel finds out Elijah took the job, then going to now they have to work together, and then being petty, sitting on the couch, being super petty, and then we get to that 8-page scene where we ended the filming journey with that big argument and big blowout between Daniel and Elijah. Was the very last scene that we shot on that day, on top of all the other Lynn Studio scenes. I know Shaquan was exhausted because I feel like, and I just have to say, I feel like he did his best work since I've known him that day. I'm just so very proud of the work he did that day. I will never forget watching that scene because it was getting really late, and I think we had sort of two angles that we could get left before it was like, girl, you got to wrap this up and go. And I'll never forget watching his medium where he says, "Oh my God, what is the line? I'm gonna butcher it, but where he, oh my goodness, of course I forget it now. Um, it was after they yell at each other and he's about to move and he tells them, I think he says like, oh, you make me feel normal. That's the line. He said, you make me feel normal. And Shaquan and I always joke about how he says, I love you. Shaquan could fall in love with a tree, a desk fan, a cell phone, a pencil, and you just believe it every time. And I love like the vulnerability, the crack in his voice, like I'm just so very proud of that scene and the fact that he wrote it. No one knows that character like he does. I feel like we share Daniel, me and him together. So just had to give a shout out there. Um, what influenced the decision to bring Benjamin back? Was it to give Daniel the challenge of choosing between his first love or current love for the final season? That is a very good question. Um, so when we were writing season 2, I think, and I can't remember exactly, but Benjamin was brought up, I think, at first of like a joke of maybe he comes back and he has something to do with, um, he has something to do in the realm of he's working back in Boston, he's doing something with studio work in Boston, and him being back in Boston, would he naturally reach back out to Daniel, right? And at the end of the season, we find out that he shows up, and it's because of Samaj. I will say that although it first started off as like an idea that was thrown out, I've always loved Benjamin from the very first season, but I was hesitant because I was like, we had done 3 seasons of Benjamin and Daniel as a couple, right? We did a spin-off so that we could focus on sort of the other characters in the unconditional love world and sort of build out on them. But for me, as the idea grew and as I thought about it, I was like, it's a no-brainer to bring Benjamin back. And I'm sort of like cutting around certain things because I'm trying to remember what we revealed exactly in that finale, without giving too much away. But I will just say, yeah, it started off as like, hey, this is an idea. What if we bring him back in this capacity and he shows up in the finale and sort of blindsides Daniel. But I will say I don't think originally it wasn't to sort of break up anything with Elijah, although it'll probably evolve into something like that. But I will say, yeah, it wasn't something that was like at the top of our list of, hey, let's bring Benjamin back. But as the idea sort of grew throughout the writers' room, it sort of was just like, yeah, it's a no brainer. Where they end up and sort of how things sort of develop for the three of them in the workplace, I think will be really exciting. Again, long-winded answer, but thank you so much, and thank you for being. I just have to say, to all the folks who watch our episodes and leave such detailed comments, I that is the best thing to me. One thing I've always said is I don't care if four people watch this show, but if four people watch this show and they relate to it or have something that um, so they saw themselves in a character or maybe didn't like something this character did because it was the most horrible thing in the world. I just am so grateful for the comments that we received on season two. It really, the most hilarious comments, I would say, like every time a comment came in, I was sending it to our writers group chat, and we were laughing about it. So just want to say, I recognize the names. I just want to say thank you so much for all of you for commenting throughout our season, letting us know what you love, letting us know what certain didn't hit. I really do appreciate that, and I hope we give you a satisfying ending with this final season. But really great question, and thank you so much for watching and supporting the show. Um, yeah. Any questions about any other characters? Anything you want to see? Would love to hear maybe what direction you see the season going, and I always love reading those as well. Um, but yeah, so again, we're sort of in the um, pre-production phase where we're getting ready to get to the next step as we reach our phase one goal. With our final season, we'll be able to move to the next step. So that's where we are now. Any non-spoilery things you can share about Juanita and Gideon's relationship trajectory for the next season? Um, I will say that for Juanita and Gideon, and I feel like this is a non-spoiler, but I feel like with Juanita and Gideon, you're finally going to see Juanita open up more. Sort of vulnerable state when we open this season. Obviously where we ended with her and the workplace, a lot of things are in the left unknown for her when we start the season. So I say you'll finally get to see her open up in a new way, which I think is exciting. Gideon is a really big support system for her this season. And I think it's just gonna be it's gonna be a nice, yeah, I'll say it's gonna be a nice love story to watch unfold. So I would say that's like my non-spoilery. You'll definitely see Juanita open up more, and Gideon is going to be a very big support system for her in a very big way with one of our storylines this season. Um, Shaquan said, "How are you exploring love this season, and have you thought about angles and shots?" So I'll answer the first question. How are you exploring love this season? Love is always the start of where I sort of come from. I love every couple on this show, even the ones that didn't last. Like I am a diehard Sandra and Dustin fan. Sandra and Dustin. I love Lori and Rashad. I love Juanita and Gideon. I love Daniel and like I love every couple, even if they didn't make it. So love is always sort of the lens I lead from with everything that I do, every episode. Like I said, this show is a romantic family drama. So for me, I love love, and I'm always creating what I don't always see. So we're exploring love in all the ways, friendships, relationships, family. You'll see the love throughout all of those connections this season, as you always have in the show. And have you thought about angles and shots? No, I have not. Um, I have not thought about any of that. I still don't know who's directing what episode. Still have not gotten there yet. I know which ones like I want to um, direct and have thought about directing, but have not thought about like haven't even gotten there yet. Like I always am in the middle of chaos with when we're in pre-production, and I would say I take out like 2 weeks before we start filming the season to finalize. I'm always thinking about what sort of how I want to come into the scene, or where I want the characters to sort of sit and interact, and how are they going to walk out, and sort of the physicality of it and the blocking. But for me, normally that all comes like right that planning period, right where we were sort of in it right before we even touched down on set. But I have not thought about um any of that. But I am in like my inspiration phase, so I'm watching things that inspire me at the moment to sort of that always inspire choices. So I'm very excited about possibilities, but definitely have not thought about like in terms of like our own show, um, what that will look like. But I'm sure it'll be great. Um, yes. Let's see. Oh, another thing I didn't mention too, we do have a newsletter out as well. We just released our first volume. So if you go to You Love Series, the letter U, LOVESERIES.com/newsletter, you can subscribe to our newsletter. We'll be releasing another volume soon. So if you haven't already, signed up for that. That'll be where you can get like our most up to date sort of updates on our final season, and of course on social media. But you'll get it at the newsletter first. Question: Jeremiah and Tori were a surprising but nice foil for one another in the back half of the season. Do you remember how you all came up with pairing those two together? So, writers, correct me if I'm wrong, but originally Jeremiah was supposed to be a potential love interest for Lori. Um, and I believe they were supposed to meet in uh at a therapy session. Like Jeremiah was gonna start therapy. Lori's obviously been in therapy. They were gonna come out, sparks were gonna fly, and that's where sort of we were gonna um go with them. But obviously Rashad and Lori was the better choice, and I'm glad we went that way. But yeah, originally Jeremiah and Lori was sort of a thing, and then it was a thing of the Bell and Hill family have known each other all of their lives, right? But we've never seen that. If you've watched Unconditional Love, Tasha and Daniel are best friends. They've been best friends since they were kids, but now that Tasha's gone, it's natural for Tori to obviously be friends with Daniel as well, because they all grew up together. And that story just seemed more natural. The fact that these two people who hadn't seen each other in a long time, but grew up together, had a lot of things in common, was sort of had a lot of family issues, especially Tori, in the first season of Love Undone, and then obviously Jeremiah with coming back and trying to reintegrate himself into his family and into the world. It just seemed natural for the two of them to really support each other, see how much they have in common, and then rebuild their friendship, because again they hadn't seen each other for a long time. But yeah, it originally started off as Lori and Jeremiah, and sort of just trickled its way, I think, naturally into what it was supposed to be with them too. Shaquan said, Dustin is my fave. As the baby of your family, do you relate to him in any way? Um, that's a great question that I've never thought about. I don't know that I relate to Dustin entirely. I feel like there are some things where I'm just like, yeah, I've sort of been in that position and can relate to that. But I would say as like a full character, no, or I haven't thought about it enough. I don't relate sort of to Dustin entirely. For me, it's always been Daniel, who I've related to. I feel like Daniel is me minus the love life because ciao. But yeah. Um, oh my God, I couldn't imagine Jeremiah and Lori. So glad y'all went with Rashad and Lori instead. Any chance we'll get a scene with Rashad, Lori, Cameron, and Tori next season? So I guess this will be my spoiler since I already spoiled it in a director's commentary that I did. So in the very first episode, you will see Rashad, Lori, Cameron, and Tori. Why and what happens in that scene, I can't reveal, but yes, you will get a scene with all four of them. And I'm only saying that because I already said it. And if you've watched that past director's episode, you already know. So, yes. And I think I commented on this before, but originally there was supposed to be Tori and Lori was supposed to have an encounter in season 2, but unfortunately, because of scheduling, it didn't make its way through. But I will say, all the questions you have with the four of them will be answered in the premiere in episode 5. Yeah, it's going to be a ride. So yes, short answer, yes, you will see, you will get a scene with all four of them. I always feel like I think of two ways of like a writer of like what absolutely needs to be seen. Are we servicing the story? And then I'm just like, as a sometimes I have to take that off, and I'm just like, as a viewer, is that something I want to see? And absolutely 100%. So yes, we will see that. And I agree that Jeremiah and Lori, yeah, I will agree. Thinking of like the dynamics and how they sort of would fit together, I'm so glad we went in the direction that we went. And you'll see that sort of unfold too, because where we left off at the end of season 2, we sort of don't know what they are, right? We don't know if something is going to come out of the two of them. Are they just going to be friends? So that'll be, excuse me, sort of exciting to explore as well this season with the two of them. Girl, everybody was going to be intertwined. Shout out to episode 7, intertwined. Yeah, I feel like it was naturally it almost felt Desperate Housewives-ish, where everybody on the street knows each other, everybody on Love Undone. And it wasn't until Brandon, one of our writers, season 2, was like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was just like, we can't connect everybody. Everybody cannot be connected. So there were certain ones, obviously, that we took off the table, but some of them were natural, like I said, with the Tori and Jeremiah being, childhood friends and the families growing up together, and Dustin and Cameron and Deborah being siblings, and Dustin and Sandra's history, so they all know each other. Those sort of felt more natural, but yeah, there was some other ones too, and I would have to go back to our planning sheet, but there was some other ones that were just like, yeah, definitely. Any more questions on any other characters or where we're headed for the season? Want to thank you all for being here and for the questions so far. Definitely do appreciate it. While we do that, I just want to I did this on the first creator chat, want to do it again because I am very appreciative and grateful for every single person who has supported our final season. So just want to publicly thank these people who have contributed so far to our crowdfunding campaign. And if you see this, just know that we are grateful to have your support. Some of you have been supporting since the very first season. So just want to thank Kevin Hagan, Blanca Texera, Patrick Mensa Bawadi, Driscoll DeCanto, Quanda Smith, Mary Flaherty, Thomas Mason Jr., Imani Dameron, Will Fulton, Kelly Winston, Benjamin Bryant, Patrick Sutton, Dominique McCoy, Jillian Poison, Mark Bison, Joan Fulmore, Nilza Feliciano, Alize Cabral, Sean Radley, Nancy Texera, Corey Dameron, LaJarvis Stevens, Lionel Jackson, Nakisha Amato, Jade Rodriguez, Dylan Shea, Carolyn Grant, Lamar Neal, Carmen Hardaway, Ron Artist Jr., King of Chaos, Hane Belser, Queen of Romance, Evelyn Merrick, Maria Judice, Laurie DeMarco, Danielle O'Connor, and Bree Bolden. Just want to say thank you for supporting our show. And then again, thank you to everyone who has shared our campaign, who has shared our show with someone. Just want to say thank you for supporting us in all ways. It's greatly appreciated. Um, so yeah, we'll wrap up in a few minutes. But again, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat before we go. But we'll do this obviously again. I'm trying to do it like on a monthly basis, spread out throughout like our other platforms. We did our first one on Instagram, doing YouTube today. Going to make our way to some other spaces as well, but hopefully we'll be back on YouTube very soon to sort of do this. And again, if you want to send any questions in advance, I know sometimes thinking you'll think of something after you leave. Feel free to email them to us at loveundone@gmail.com. Again, that is loveundone@gmail.com. And we can answer them on a future creator chat or even in our newsletter. We're going to incorporate some stuff in our newsletter as well. So if you have any questions or want to see anything in a future volume of that, make sure you include those there as well. So I'm excited for 304 based on your excitement about it earlier. Thinking back to 204, is there a tradition you all have with the fourth episode being the wild one, or is it just coincidence? So funny enough, episode 6 has sort of always been leading up to season 2 of Love Undone. So like the first 3 seasons of Unconditional Love and then the first season of episode 1. 6 has sort of been the things where it has been the episode where all things, all the confrontations sort of happen and all the chaos sort of happens. With season 2, episode 4 was like obviously the middle of the season. So like everything that needed to happen in terms of like things we wanted to reveal needed to happen in that episode so that the fallout could happen through to the end of the season. I will say that there are many sort of episode 4s this season sprinkled throughout. I would say episode 304, episode 305, episode 306, the whole season up until the finale, which I think sort of begins to wrap things up. It's just a very fast-paced season, but I will say like it's always been 6, but like in season 2, episode 4 was like the middle point where like these things needed to happen. We needed to address Jeremiah, Dustin, and Sandra, and like all of the things so that we could see the fallout. Just want to say shout out to Ron Artist Jr. for writing that episode. I felt like he should have won an Indie Series Awards. I'm going to say that publicly. So shout out to Ron for his excellent work on that episode, and all of our writers. Just want to say thank you to Shaquan, to Hane, Jaretta, Ron, Brandon. Thank you for coming on in season 2 and elevating the show in such a way that has inspired me and has inspired all of our viewers. And for this final season, which I think is our best yet. So just I have to shout out the writers because it all starts on the page. You do not have a scene as chaotic as that without a writer. So I really want to shout out all of our writers who really make the show so much better. All of our actors who show up and give all of themselves to every scene and every episode for making the season better. All of our hardworking crew. Cannot do it without our crew. Just want to say thank you to our crew as well for all of their hard work. But yeah, just we have a really great team, and I'm really lucky and love working with them. The writers, we've grown into a family. I say some of the most unhinged things to them, and they do not judge me. So I'm just so grateful that I have such a great team to create with. So yeah, but yeah, the season 3, there's so much going on from the very first episode because again, we have all of these things to address from season 2. some new things that we wanted to explore with a lot of characters. So you will, it's a fast-paced train ride from the very first episode. So definitely, yeah, buckle up. It's going to be a very exciting, chaotic, love-filled season. So definitely stay tuned for that. Very excited to create that with everyone. Hopefully very soon. Um, so again, if you're just now coming in, or if you've been here, my name is Joseph. I'm the creator of Love Undone. We're talking all things season 2, season 1 of Love Undone, and where we're going for season 3 of Love Undone. As I mentioned, we are in the pre-production phase, so we are raising funds for our final season. You can find the link in any of our YouTube videos or on social media, but I will also give it to you here in case anybody wants to take that. So if you want to support or share it, again, we understand that not everybody has to give, which is totally understandable. But if you want to share with anybody that you know. I always say let folks watch the show first and let and let that lead them, because I feel like I've heard a lot of times that a lot of people just off like first looks thought this show wasn't for them. Or some people just don't like romance, or some people just don't like the day-to-day, which is everybody has sort of their preference. But I always love when someone says, your show wasn't something that was originally on my radar, but after watching it, it's become one of my favorite things. And so for me, I always say, send people the link to the show first, let them fall in love with the show, or if they hate the show, and go that way. But the link, you can go to gofundme.com /F/LU final season. So again, you can go there, but the links will be in all of our YouTube videos and will be in on all of our social media pages as well. I know we're about to wrap, but since we brought up Juanita and Gideon, is there anything interesting coming up for Rufus? Yes. So there's a lot of, and I want to take a moment to just say that I acknowledge that a lot of people think Rufus is a bum. He comes off that way, but he's another character that I'm like, yes, he's done all of these things in his past, but for me, like, how do we redeem him if there's a possible way to redeem him? Because some people are just not redeemable. But there's a lot of family things coming up for Rufus that I think people aren't going to expect. A lot of family things, some unexpected friendships will bloom for Rufus. And I feel like he's really, although he's tried and not succeeded, I think he's really going to get his shit together this season, or at least attempt to. So yes, there's a lot coming up. We actually did share a sneak peek, a Juanita sneak peek once we hit 3K, if you missed that one. But Rufus and Gideon do meet too, and that's a really fun scene. So you can look forward to a Rufus and Gideon interaction. Ron said Rufus definitely has some things on the horizon. Yes, he does. He does. We have not forgotten about Rufus. Juanita is like, as you saw in episode 6, she is completely wants nothing to do with him. So yeah, I think we sort of there's one character which I can't reveal because it'll give away, but there's one character that interacts with a good majority of our cast that I'm very excited for people to see. That I think it's going to make a lot of people realize, a lot of our characters in one certain family realize a lot of things about themselves. So very excited for you all to see that. Yeah, but Rufus has a lot going on. I can take 2 more questions. I know there's a delay, so I'll stick around till like 8:03, and then we can end if anybody has any final things. But again, thank you so much for joining, and anybody who will watch this replay. Let us know what you think, what your questions are for the final season. Let us know what you want to see, who you're excited to see return, um, and sort of why you like the show. I always love hearing that. So if you want to leave a comment about like what brought you to Love Undone or what you love about the show, feel free to leave that if you want as well. Or if you have any specific questions, we'll always answer those in any of the comment sections. So feel free to leave it on the video, or if you want to save it for another creator chat, we can do that as well. Or address it in our newsletter. So make sure, homework for today, make sure you sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. Share the GoFundMe link with everybody that you know, and help us spread the word. Continue to watch the show and tell people about the show. We're so excited to create our final season and can't wait to share it with you. I hope we don't disappoint you. I think, like I said, I think it's our best season yet, and really, I'm very satisfied with where we end up. So very excited to film the season and bring it to you all hopefully very soon. Um, but yeah, just want I'm extremely grateful for all of the support. For those of you who have been there for the first day, for those of you who just started yesterday, thank you so much for being a part of this family. You are just as important as anybody else who creates the show, because you're ultimately watching it and consuming it. So thank you so much. Again, thank you is just it's not enough. So thank you. Um, Thank you for watching and supporting. But yeah, I believe I don't see any other questions, so we will wrap up. But again, feel free to leave anything in the chat. I hope you enjoyed this creator chat, and will join us for a future one. Again, my name is Joseph, creator of Love Undone, and hopefully we'll be able to bring season 3 to you very soon.